Hey y'all, come along with me while I make some sourdough. So first I got to get my starter ready. I take off the top layer. It's been a couple days since I've been able to feed it. Been at work, so I'm going to take that off and put it aside. Some people like to fry it up like focaccia bread, but I usually just throw mine away unless I have a ton of time to do something with it. Okay, now I'm going to feed it. Make sure it's nice and bubbly for when I want to use it. I'm going to add some flour and some water to it. Now I'm going to stir it around, make sure it's all nice and mixed together, and then I'm going to put it aside. Now it's been several hours. You see that my starter is nice and bubbly and ready to use. So I measure out all my ingredients. I usually make 2 loaves of bread, so I do 300 grams of the starter, and then I put it in my big pot. Once I get the exact amount, I went a little overboard, as you can see, so I got to put a little bit back. Okay, now I'm going to get my water. And for 300 grams of the starter, I usually do anywhere from 500 to 600 grams of the water. Next, I'm going to mix the olive oil in. So I usually do about 50 grams for 2 loaves of bread. And this day I was super excited doing all this, so I kept going a little bit over and would have to fix the measurements. I give it a little bit of a mix in there, and then I get my sea salt ready. I do about 20 grams of sea salt for 2 loaves of bread, just enough to give it a little savory taste. So I'm getting all the salt out of my measuring cup, and then I give it a little bit of a stir again, and then I'm going to get my flour ready. For my flour, I use King Arthur's organic bread flour, and I do about 1,000 grams for 2 loaves of bread. I usually like to do half of the 1,000 and mix it around a little bit and then do the other half. After you've added all the ingredients, then here comes the mixing. So I start mixing it around first with my spatula, and then usually I will go to my hands once I've mixed the water, starter, and flour up as best as I can. Now, when I use my hands, I like to wash them really thoroughly, make sure I don't have any rings on or anything, because the flour and all this will get into every little crevice of your ring if you try to do it with any kind of jewelry on. Once it's all mixed together, I usually get a damp cloth and I lay it over it and let it sit from anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple hours, depending on what my day looks like. Once I've let it set for multiple hours, I put a little flour on a cutting board and I get it out, and this is when I'm going to break it into 2 loaves. So I split it, and then I try to make it into kind of like a ball shape, and then I'll put it into a bread kind of silicone thing. It helps to let it kind of expand. As you can see, this dough is super sticky. So I added a little bit more flour onto the cutting board so that I could fold it better and it was more manageable. Once I've put both of these loaves into these silicone bowls, I usually cover it with a damp cloth cover, and then I either leave it out on the counter, or today, when it was nice and warm outside, I actually put it outside on a table. Okay, so at this point, they've been sitting out for hours. I'm going to put a little more flour onto my cutting board, and then I'm going to get the risen loaves out of the silicone bowls, and I'm going to shape them into balls, fold it really into balls, and put them into my Dutch oven. Now when I do this, I put some parchment paper down and put it into my Dutch oven, and then shape it and then place it in there gently. I like to preheat the oven to 450, making sure it's real nice and hot when I'm ready to cook, and then I just really let it sit there for a while. Once I've shaped them and put them into the Dutch oven, then I take a knife and I cut whatever design I want on top of it. I'm not real creative with the designs yet. I'm still working on it. Definitely a newbie and an amateur with it. But I usually do either a crisscross or like something just to let the sourdough breathe and rise and look cool when it's done. While I'm preheating the oven and I've already made the sourdough and crisscrossed and all the things, I let it sit in that Dutch oven open for a while, maybe 30 minutes to an hour until I'm ready to bake it. It just helps it rise one more time. And then when I'm finally getting ready to bake it, I put the cover on there. I turn the oven down to 400 and I put both these Dutch ovens into the oven so that they bake together. At this point, I bake the bread for 20 minutes with the lids on at a temperature of 400. Then I open the oven, pull the lid off, and then I let it bake an additional 30 minutes. When the 30 minutes is up, I actually open the oven for anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to just let the moisture out while it's still baking. When that's complete, I pull both loaves out. I leave them on the oven and usually leave them still in the open Dutch oven pots for about 30 minutes or so. When that is complete, I usually will pull the bread out of that with the parchment paper, put it on the counter, and let it sit overnight. If I want to make some toast or eat some bread right then, I usually wait till I get it out on the counter before I start cutting it. These particular loaves did not make it past that evening. My family devoured at least one full loaf that night, and the next loaf is just literally crumbs. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.